What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got another edition of The Drive-In, where I watch recently released films, and I tell you whether they're worth watching, worth waiting for, or worth skipping altogether. Today I've got another one that was in theaters. I saw it in its second week of release. I saw it last weekend. Sorry for the late review. It's been a really busy week already. A lot of things going on. I'm currently in a Shakespeare play. I've got a film in post-production. So come back to this channel and check out the reviews on those things later on. But yes, I wanted to review one of the more divisive and generally hated films that has come out this year. One that I was not very excited about. And then I saw the trailer. And then I tried to avoid other trailers because the trailer gave too much away. Let's just dive right into it, and this one might surprise you. I'm here to review Exorcist Believer. It is a kind of a straight sequel to the original Exorcist in the 70s. I guess you could kind of consider the other ones canon. I'm not quite sure how they intersect with the original. I know this is kind of almost a direct sequel to the original. There are some references to it in this. I'm going to keep this review spoiler-free. I'm not going to give anything away except the stuff that's already in the trailer and basic plot points. Not going to do any spoilers because it's still very much in theaters. But yeah, I was coming into this one pretty down on it. Number one, because I think all of the sequels are not the best. I think 2 is boring. I know people love 3 because it's William Peter Blatty and it's based more on the book. But I don't like 3. I think 3 is boring aside from the fact that Chucky is an excellent character. The guy that voices Chucky is an excellent character in this film, but I think 2 is boring. I think 3 is overrated, and I don't like any of the prequel attempts they made. I have not been a fan of any sequels in this series. And the director and directing team of this series, David Gordon Green, is the same one who directed the trilogy of the Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, and I did not like the latter 2 sequels in that trilogy. The first one I thought was good, 2 and 3 I thought got progressively worse, and I did not like how Ends ended whatsoever. So I was kind of coming in on a down note. I think David Gordon Green is most notably known for like Pineapple Express and Your Highness and things like that. One of the writers, Scott Teems, is known for kind of a lot of the newer Firestarter movie, the newer Insidious movie. I've not really been a fan of some of the writing of those, so I was coming in negative. But let me tell you how this thing turned out. This film, Exorcist Believer, is a 2023 release, an Exorcist sequel that was written by Peter Sattler, Scott Teems, and David Gordon Green, directed by David Gordon Green, starring Olivia O'Neill as Catherine, Lydia Jewett as Angela, and Ellen Burstyn as Chris McNeil. Again, coming in, I was nervous. This film runs an hour and 51 minutes, and that feels long to me for a guy who doesn't like any of these sequels, but let's see how this one might buck that trend. Starting off right away, I have prologue gives stakes. So I'm not going to give away what the prologue is, but they start off kind of with a flashback of some real-life events outside the country. We start off somewhere foreign. We have an actual event kind of thing that happens. We have a blessing and a curse thing going on. So I'm not going to get too far into what it is, but right away, it gives you stakes. You see a main character that's a really intense actor in a really weird situation. You kind of get some early senses that a demon could be around or something of foul play could be around. You get a sense that one of the characters could be especially blessed and could be spiritually taken care of. That main character gets born, and right away, they're dealing with loss. One of the characters dies very early on. So the 2 main characters, the little girl and the little girl's father, are dealing with a familial loss right away. So there's an intense connection that is broken, and this little girl is born into very controversial and awkward circumstances. So now the little girl is growing up without a mother, essentially, and the father has to deal with some choices and some losses of his own, which give the characters a reason for being there right away, give you a sense of major events, and give you a sense of spirituality on both a positive and negative sense, which play into later aspects of the film. So they started off with an event that kicked things off hot and gave the characters emotion and reason for being there, which I really appreciated. I think some of the other sequels kind of get lost in a lot of dialogue and kind of stretch out their plot so much that I lose the sense of why we're there, and this one already did better than those for me in that. Number 2, acting. I want to call out the actors in general, who I thought were all really good. I didn't see any weak links. There were a few moments of cheesy dialogue and stuff like that. Some of the performances were a little bit over the top from some of the background people, but I think for the most part, especially Olivia O'Neill as Catherine and Lydia Jewett as Angela, the 2 best friend little girls, essentially did a really nice job. Being a child actor in a horror film can be really hard because it can be over the top, it can be annoying, it can be a little too cheesy, it can be a little too understated. The emotion either goes to one extreme or the other, and I think both Lydia and Olivia here did an excellent job playing those two little girls. Basically, after the loss of Catherine's mom, or I'm sorry, after the loss of Angela's mom, Angela and her best friend Catherine wind up wandering off into the woods and trying to talk to her mom, and they conjure up some things that you've seen the trailer, so you have an idea of where we're going here. I really, really enjoyed these two little girls. They were creepy, they were gross at times. Them just standing still and just staring sometimes achieved the goal of the scene. They did a lot with minimal, and when it was time to turn things up, they did it in such a way that didn't feel forced, it didn't feel cheesy, and it didn't feel annoying. And I give a lot of credit to two very tough roles in that circumstance. The father, I didn't write his name down, but he also was a very good moral compass for this. He was somebody you wanted to empathize with, and that's super important. Tension here is a plus. Tension in exorcism movies has to be one of your biggest things. If you don't have enough tension, or if all of your scares are just cheap jump scares, you tend to lose the audience. I think in this movie, they did tension pretty well. Again, they did rely on some jump scares, and 2 or 3 really got me. I jumped quite high, which is not a big achievement because I jump a lot. But I did think a couple of these scares were really, really good. And some of the times when they didn't go to jump scares, the tension of just, again, the possessed little girl standing there or staring out a window or cracking something or punching something, little basic motions with really good sound design make the tension good. Again, acting and sound design really came together nicely, which I think, again, some of the sequels are missing. Exorcist 3 has one of the best scares of all time, probably the best jump scare of all time. But other than that, the sequels don't have a lot of those moments that make you genuinely feel creeped out, waiting for something to happen in a way that's not boring. And this film, I think, did that. Gore, I thought, was really good. They didn't go over the top too much in trying to recreate the original movie. We all know about the head turning in the first one, and the pea soup throw up, and the masturbating cross, and all the things that the first Exorcist broke ground on. This one did not try and top it. It knows now in 2023 that you can't top those things. Everything's been seen, everything's been done. Trying to redo it would just be a cheap homage or a knockoff, and trying to top it would feel forced in a movie like this that resides more in character's intention, which is where this movie wins. So I really appreciate the gore they did use. When they do certain things, when there are certain kills, when there are certain moments, when somebody's bleeding, everything looks real, everything looks intense, and they don't overuse those moments. So when they do use them, they use them well. Where are we at? Fan service / music. Fan service, you guys have seen the trailer, so you know who's in the movie. You know Chris McNeil, who I read off. The character of Reagan's mother is in this movie. Ellen Burstyn does a great job here. She plays not only a returning character, which gives us links and stakes and reasoning to the first movie, it gives us direct correlation. She talks about Reagan a lot. She talks about their relationship a lot. She talks about what she does now and how she used the trauma for her own life. She's very much, to me, the Jamie Lee Curtis of this series now. Whereas she didn't feel like that gigantic of a role as compared to Reagan in the first movie, and wasn't really referenced very much in the other sequels. She is a really good vengeance-seeking, long-time expecting character in this movie, where she plays that Jamie Lee Curtis foil. She knows the evil's still out there. She has the experience. She's waited her entire life to use this knowledge that she has. She knows that it's going to come back, and it does. She plays that weathered, veteran, vengeful person who's knowledgeable and is expecting the evil. I really appreciate the way they use her in this movie. And again, everything she does feels empowered. She plays off of the new main character, or the dad and the girls, very well. And again, them bringing up Reagan, which we haven't really, I don't think we've seen since the second movie, right? I'm pretty sure we didn't see her in the others. But bringing up Reagan here gives us a connection to the original movie. I think most people panned this movie because it wasn't like the original, but I think that's what we needed, was a sequel that stood on its own and did something different by integrating 2 young girls and having another demon possess another innocent girl who was vulnerable and trying to connect to the other side. So this demon preyed upon the innocence and purity and vulnerability of that young girl while not trying to just knock off what we already saw. This wasn't a cheap remake. This wasn't a retcon sequel that changed the lore. This was a sequel that stood out and did something different while also referencing what came before it and tying things together. It is a true sequel, and it is one done with a bit of originality for as much as these things go. It's an Exorcist movie. You know there's going to be demons and exorcisms and jump scares, but for as much as it could, this one stands on its own while not forgetting its roots, which really happens a lot in these sequels. The music also. The music, as in the trailer, the music kicks in, that Tubular Bells score, which is one of the best, if not the best, up there with Halloween as the best horror themes of all time. And they use it in this film, and they also alter it and make it a little bit different to make it their own in this film. And it sounds wonderful. I got chills every time they played it. That first time they hit it and reintroduced us to Chris McNeil, that was my favorite part of the movie. I loved it so much. And then, yeah, there also is some fan service toward the end of the film that I will not get into, but reasons for fans of franchises like this to watch the movie, for sure. CGI was my only big negative here. Yeah, it's an hour and 51 minutes, so they could have cut it down. I'm always down for an hour and a half to an hour and 35 or something like this. The runtime initially scared me a little bit. I thought it was done well. It was paced well and things were done well. Yeah, they could have shortened a couple things so it wasn't perfect, but I thought for a runtime like this, it was paced pretty well. I gotta say, though, toward the last act of the film, there was some CGI they didn't have to use. They were using good practical gore the entire time, and then, unfortunately, the one time they go to CGI, it doesn't look great, and it is at a pretty crucial moment in the film, so that took it down a few points for me just on that. But I do know, and again, this is not a spoiler, this has been announced and reported a long time ago, and it's been talked about on the internet, that this is the first of an Exorcist trilogy. Exorcist Believer, I think, is coming out next year, and then David Gordon Green's team is doing one final one the year after. Do I think there's enough meat on this bone and enough reasons to come back for another one? Yes, I do. I think they did enough of a job in wrapping this up, but also leaving some things hanging there for us to come back to, and gave us a good enough movie to go see a sequel. I was coming into this very negative and hearing nothing but negative things, and I come out of this pleasantly surprised and actually anticipating and wanting to see the next one. Now, again, David Gordon Green did the same thing for me with Halloween 2018, and then Kills and Ends got worse and worse and worse. So let's hope that doesn't happen with Exorcist Deceiver. But for Exorcist Believer, I'm going to give this film a 6.5 out of 10 and put it maybe somewhere in my low-end top 10 for the year, number 9 or 10. It's not amazing. It's an Exorcist movie, but I think it is by far and away for me, and I know this is blasphemous because you guys love Part 3, far and away for me, my favorite sequel in the Exorcist franchise and the second best movie in the franchise behind the beloved original. So 6.5 out of 10, what'd you guys think? If you saw it in theaters, please tell me down in the comments below. If you like these deep dive movie reviews, please like, share, and subscribe. I've got a couple other ones up. I just did Saw X. I did a couple others. I'm going to be doing Totally Killer that just dropped on Amazon Prime, probably in the next couple days to next week. It'll be posted, so come back and check that out. But like, share, and subscribe. Please comment down below what you thought of this film, what you think of this franchise, and what you want to see in future installments of The Exorcist. I'll catch you guys next time. Happy October and stay scared.